Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Sulimah. So today I wanna explain about my article work. This article is inspired by the fact on the ground to want to take a decent education is still hindered by poverty. So I carry the theme is decreasing the amount of poverty in Indonesia to achieve a better education. So in this my article works, there are 2 point focus, and one is poverty and two education. So in this slide I will explain about poverty. But focusedly, poverty is the worst form of violence. Poverty is the worst form of violence, Mahatma Gandhi. The amount of poverty in Indonesia increasing until the last data show that it reaches 28 for 51 million lives in 2019. 100 or even 1,000 children become the victim dropout students due to economic condition in poverty. This violence should be overcome so that the education can be distributed equally in order to maximum the students' education. Rule implementation by the cooperation of three stakeholders are needed. And next slide will explain about the should government and non-should the government. And one, should the government, first of all, the government should provide some proper facilities to sustain an equality in terms of education. And some students in poverty still have hardship to get access to education through infrastructure. Moreover, some students who live in the remote area must cross by swimming and use an unstable rope bridge through the river to reach their school. Because there is no decent bridge which can connect one area to another well. For example, students who live in the big city can reach their education easily because the good infrastructure, facilities, and tools are already there. By contrast, students who live in the remote area have to bet their life in terms of their struggle, since the government is the one who has the biggest role toward this case. They have to overcome this circumstance by fixing the infrastructures or replace it with the new one. In fact, all students have the same right to obtain an education. No matter where they live, they deserve to feel the education equality. Actually, not only the government, but NGO also deserve to lend a hand when realizing that society still needs a help. And second, in this slide, why should not government but non-government organization or NGO should give assistance for society who in trouble? Based on the UNICEF data in 2017, there are more than 2.5 million dropout students. This is caused by the economic pressures that make leaving school unavoidable. Since the student live in a poverty, they feel having a responsibility to undergo some activities which to meet their financial. For instance, they have to be a vendor and sell some food or good, and offer some services to make ends meet. As a result, they have to keep their nose to the grindstone to make a living for their family instead of continuing their education. In order to mitigate the number of dropout students, assistance by NGO is necessary. Significantly, NGO is important to establish the nation and society, so that NGO should involve to relieve the burden of their family by giving help and support, such as charity, build some community-based enterprises, and participation in terms of society needs and its implementation. Another key point to remember is that both external assistance and internal awareness have a great impact towards poverty. And next slide will explain about society awareness is required to minimize the amount of poverty. Last but not least, society awareness is required to minimize the amount of poverty. Last but not least, society awareness is required to minimize the amount of poverty. Students who live in poverty cannot receive the education well because of the lack of material resources. In fact, they should be provided by the parent to support their children's student. Yet, poverty often places constraint on the family's ability to provide other material resources for their children as well. For assistance, the children have limited access to high quality daycare, limited access to before or after school care, and limited access to get some knowledge resource such as book, internet, and a teacher. To that end, society awareness should be upgraded in order to decrease the amount of poverty by lending some books, share knowledge to them, and give them some high quality foods. Therefore, society already their problems in terms of material research with support education. And last is conclusion. In conclusion, an involvement of the government, NGO, and society awareness, including their action, are necessary to generate a bright education toward the students. Each stakeholder has a different contribution level to overcome the poverty, and the government has the biggest contribution to focus on infrastructure side, then support by assistance from NGO, and also follow by a feeling of awareness which should be increased in society itself. If poverty is the worst of violence, then the real action should be there or prevent emergence of new victims. That's enough my presentation about my article works. The theme is decreasing the amount of poverty in Indonesia to achieve a better education. Before I go and become one of the suggestion our recommendation for better Indonesian education. Wallahul muwaffiq ila aqwamit thoriq. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.